Have you ever heard such a ridiculous criticism of something that it just sticks with you? You wake up in the wee hours of the night screaming and shaking in pain. You reach over to your desk for that one last drink to get you back to bed, and you shudder as the nightmares begin again. Well, that's what happened to me when I've been looking through my comments on pretty much all of my Spider-Man videos. I'm sure that I will open myself up to a wave of joke comments for this, and I will say 100%, I actually appreciate the meme of it, but the true criticism that is crazy to me, and I've seen it with a lot of other YouTubers who cover Spider-Man, I've seen it with video game reviews that cover Spider-Man, I've seen it with videos on Twitter, you're not swinging right. You're not swinging right in Spider-Man. You're not swinging the way that I want you to swing. You're not traveling through the world, traversing across the buildings and the rooftops and the skylines of New York in the way that I would. You're not swinging right. And this is such a bizarre, funny, weird thing to me to say. Now, look, I've seen people who swing very oddly in terms of like just web zipping across the whole thing and not really doing anything else. But you know what the web swinging is there to do? It is there to get you from point A to point B. It is a traversal system. This is such a weird criticism to me because this would almost be like if you were saying to people playing GTA, hey, you didn't stop at that red light. What the hell are you doing? Just because there's a societal expectation built into whatever it is, right? Like, let's say you watch the Andrew Garfield movies and you say, well, I'm going to swing kind of like Andrew Garfield. I'm going to take these pauses here. I'm going to do this. Or maybe you watched a lot of the Raimi movies and you're like, I'm going to do a little bit more of the running across the buildings in between swings on the walls, that kind of stuff. Okay, maybe that's how you grew up with Spider-Man and that's your interpretation of it. Maybe you're like me, you're a little more used to the breaks in the web swinging combined with that. Like I grew up on the PS1 game where it was just very straightforward. It was kind of a swing, 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 drop, swing, drop, very straightforward type thing. And so my style of swinging is definitely my style of swinging, I guess. I kind of incorporate things like that in with web zipping from my time of playing Ultimate Spider-Man, in with some of the wall running that I came to love in things like the Tobey Maguire movies. But overall, there's no right way to swing. And I know that this is probably just a big old rambly rant video. If you do enjoy today's video, by the way, it's not going to be too long because this is not the deepest topic ever. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe. I appreciate you very much. But this is just such a weird thing to me that I've been seeing so often of like, oh, you're not doing the swinging in this way. You're not using the web zip the way I would. You ran up that building, but you didn't press X at the very top or cross, as some PlayStation fans like to point out, at the very top of the run in order to catapult back into a vault type swing and then drop down and do a trick. And it's so weird to me because I would think that for how snobbish some Spider-Man fans are and how into the characters some are, that people would realize that the whole point of a game like Miles Morales was literally the tagline was be yourself. Like you're Spider-Man, but you don't have to be the Peter Parker Spider-Man. You can still be a different type of Spider-Man while still upholding that name, right? I would think that with as big of fans as the Spider-Man PS4 / Spider-Man PS5 community is, more people would realize that, right? That these games, yes, they do have a linear story and there is very limited decision making, but how you play the game is also supposed to be where the freedom is. Do you choose to run up a wall? Do you choose to just wall climb slowly? Do you choose to vault more than I do? Do you choose to jump more than I do? Hey, do you use the web bomb more than I use it? Or web grenade? I honestly don't even remember the name of it at the moment because I'm just so annoyed. But hey, you know what? Maybe you use the impact webbing more than I do. You incorporate that into your combat style. I've seen people who can get up into the hundreds in combos in this game. Usually their combo ends when they run out of enemies to fight, not because they messed up. And I'm not that great. I usually cap at about 175, 200. But I like to think I'm decent at the combat and decent at getting around. I've beaten the game several times. I platinumed it on PlayStation 4. I played through it a bunch on PS5. I didn't platinum it yet because I just played it so many times on PS4. And it just kind of is what it is. I use the swinging to get where I need to go. I try and make it stylish. I try and have a fun time with it. But that's what the game is, right? Fun. And this probably boils down to a very much bigger conversation, which maybe we'll have in the future in general about games in general. But I will bring it up here as kind of a point. It's something that I've always found very, very silly and very stupid, was the idea of you're not playing this video game the way I would, so you're wrong. And my honest opinion is if you're beating the game, right? Now look, if you suck, like I'm talking, you cannot beat the game at all. Not because of a disability, not because of anything like that, but I'm just saying like you're playing a game and you just can't get past part of it. And it's really frustrating. There are times where that's the game's fault. There are times where that's a huge difficulty spike. There's a reason they're called spikes, where it's not a natural curve. There's not a lot of time to get acclimated to it. And maybe the game design was a little off. We know video games are not perfect. Humans are not perfect. So why would our art be? But if the game is not at fault and you are just stuck, you are really stuck somewhere, the game is hard but fair, like me, that's how they describe me in college, hard but fair. Let's say that that's where it's at, right? Then of course, someone offering you constructive criticism of, listen, Jay, I understand you're fighting the Rhino in Spider-Man PS1, but you keep losing. Here's why I think you keep losing. Maybe if you adjusted your playstyle in this way to compensate for this enemy and for the strategies that the developers kind of envisioned in their heads when they created this, maybe you'd have an easier time. Totally fair. Totally fair criticism, right? Because obviously I'm doing something wrong because the game is tough, it's challenging, but it's fair. Hard but fair, like me, like I said. But if you're talking about something like traversal, you're talking about something like getting from point A to point B, and you are able to beat the game. You are able to get to the end of the game. You are able to do what the game asks you to do. Yeah, maybe it's not the most stylish. Genuinely, 100%, maybe it's not. My dad used to play video games. God rest his soul before he passed. He used to play video games. He was 70-something years old, okay? When he started playing video games, he was like 65. Maybe it was more like 63, but 63 to 65. The guy had the finesse of a bull in a china shop, all right? He would run through Skyrim. Sometimes he'd bump into walls. Sometimes he'd lose track of an NPC. I mean, the guy, he was older. You know, that's how it works. And there were times where I would be watching and I'd be thinking, if I was holding the controller right now, I would not have bumped into that. Or if I was holding the controller right now, I would have beaten that enemy faster. But you know why I didn't want to make a big deal out of that? Because I'm not an elitist douchebag who's going to police how everyone plays their video games. Now, if you ask every video game, I will cover my ass here real quick. I made a video in the past where I talked about should every game have an easy mode. I still maintain no, not really. Now, should every game have accessibility options for people with disabilities? I think yes. Why cut out potential customers and people who can enjoy your game and engage with it? You know, this would be like if I said, we shouldn't make the drawing tablets that can draw with your eyes. Why? Well, because I don't want it accessible. No, that's not what I'm talking about at all. What I'm talking about is policing how people play games. If you want games to cater to you because you don't want a challenge at all, that's one thing. That's a criticism I've brought up before that I stand behind. Because unless you have a disability issue, I think that's very silly. And the reason I give disability issues a big pass on that is, one, I have some disability issues, and two, people should be able to enjoy things. That's what this whole thing comes down to, right? People should be able to enjoy things. Now, if you want everything to change to fit you as just a person because you're lazy, because you don't want to engage with it, because you don't want to learn styles, you don't want to compensate for your play style and for what the developers asked of you in a certain case, and it's tough but fair. If you are just the average able-bodied person, you are probably not going to need the game to cater to you in every way unless it was made in a poor way, right? I think most of us can agree with that. However, if developers choose to add in easy modes and things like that, of course, that's their choice. Again, totally their choice. The reason I wanted to circle back to that video from the past is because I don't want someone going and looking at it and being like, well, hey, Jay, you said that people shouldn't tell you how to play games. They shouldn't tell people how to play games. But you're telling them how to play games because you're saying that they shouldn't play on easy. No, that's not the case at all. What I was saying in that video from back then, and the reason I think it's important to address is so I don't sound hypocritical, is that I think there are certain games where they are balanced best and most engaging on harder difficulties, and if you tone that down too much, unless you are older like my dad was, or maybe there's some other external reason, like we've discussed, I think you might be depriving yourself a little bit of some of the intended joy of the game. That's why I think that we shouldn't force things like difficulty modes into every game. Again, I bring that up it sounds off topic, but there was a purpose to that, so it doesn't just sound like I'm changing my narrative. But when it comes down to it, when games are as they are, right? And you are playing with a traversal mode, you are playing with combat, and you are getting through it. You're not dying, whatever. Yes, maybe it is not the most stylish thing, like how my dad played Skyrim. Maybe it is not the most impressive thing to watch, like how I play Batman Arkham sometimes. I'm just not the most impressive all the time at it. But you know what? You beat it. You got to the end. And the whole point is getting better. The point isn't, hey, let's all coach this person and put them down because they don't play the game the exact way I do. It's weird to me that in a world full of sports, people don't understand this. I'm not even a huge sports fan. But you know what? Sports players don't all play the games the same way. Michael Jordan is not going to play the game the same way as Shaq. And maybe that's not a great example because Jordan was like the GOAT when it comes to basketball. Maybe we could even go to LeBron. I'm not a huge LeBron fan. I think I've made that kind of clear. But LeBron is a good player, right? He's a very good basketball player. He doesn't play the exact same style as Michael Jordan. You know, when you look at these people throughout life, they get to their end goal in different ways, right? Sometimes it's not as stylish as someone else. Maybe sometimes there's a Shaq who kind of just pushes their way brute force through, and you think, wow, if this guy put in a little more effort, he could be even better. But you know what? He's very good, and that's what it is. Is there really a point in getting so worked up over how someone plays a video game? I guess I just don't understand it. Where I have a problem with it is when someone plays very, very, in a way, I want to say poorly, but what I mean is in a way where they are not engaging with the concepts of the game, and then they overly criticize the game. So for example, if say I said, it really sucks that you can't run on walls in Marvel Spider-Man, you'd say, well, you can, that's just incorrect, right? That's factually incorrect, you can do that. Now we could get into an argument of maybe the game didn't teach me how to do that at all, it had a very bad tutorial system, but at the end of the day, you technically can do that. Now, does the system work well? Okay, yes, it does. If it didn't work well, and I was saying you can't really do it, maybe there's validity to that because the system didn't work very well, right? But it does. So if I were to make that claim that you couldn't run on walls effectively in Marvel Spider-Man, people could just say, well, that's not really true. Here's how you can do it. It's pretty simple. It's not hidden. This is it. And that's a fair criticism because it's just wrong. But at the end of the day, critiquing people for style is so weird to me. It's so bizarre. It's like people view it as a talent show when we're trying to have fun playing video games, and I just find it odd. It's not competitive. You are playing a single-player game against the computer where you play as a dude with superpowers who dresses up in a tight little suit and goes around in pretty colors and does a lot of stuff, okay? In any other setting, nobody would be really taking it seriously. But for some reason, the internet is just so hardcore on everyone's ass about everything that no matter what you do, it's wrong. And it's just bizarre to me. So it's just a rant I wanted to go on today because, again, is there a very particular point to this? I guess not. I guess I got it out of my system. It was my therapy for the day. I can put down the drink one more night and find a way to cope with the nightmares. But the stupidity of criticisms like this is so bizarre to me. If you're playing in a way where you don't engage with these concepts of the game, and then you critique the game and blame the game for it completely, fine. Fair. That's fair to get on someone's ass about. I agree. We see that from video game reviewers, where they refuse to put the time in to understand a game at all, a game that is tough but fair, and then they get mad at the game. We've seen that. And that's fair to critique and criticize. But when it's just critiquing style, I feel like we should all have a little bit more going on in our lives where this is not an issue that should be at the forefront of our minds. If I don't like how someone plays a video game, if it's Nate, I'll make fun of him, same with my wife. But for the most part, other than that, you know what I will do? I will say, I don't really like how this person plays this video game. It's kind of bothering me. And I'll just find someone else to watch who plays it a way that I guess I enjoy, or I get over it and say, well, look, this person's playing it because they're not me, so they're playing it in a slightly different way than me, and look, they still beat the game. Maybe I'm not always right. It's a shocking idea. maybe my way or the highway is not always the way to live every aspect of life, including policing video games. But I digress. I'm interested to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I hope you have a fantastic day. If you want to help support the channel, we do have a Patreon. We have channel memberships, which I appreciate all my channel members. I'm going to show a little thank you card here. You guys are very, very awesome. Very, very cool. And also, we do have our own store, enchantedglamour.com, where we're putting up a lot of new comic book resin pieces from recycled, repurposed comic book paper that we have saved from landfills. Honestly, if you buy from us, you're doing the world a favor, When you get to the pearly gates, you know what'll happen? Yeah, you might face Judgment Day, but you know what'll happen? I suspect that in the list of good things you do, the great almighty God will look at it and he'll say, you know what? One time you saved that 4x4-inch piece of paper from going in a landfill and killing a tree, and I appreciate that. I'm just saying it's possible. So you know what? I don't want to sell salvation to you, but we might be doing the Lord's work a little bit here. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. We hope to see you in the next one. Have a fantastic day. And as always, everyone, stay shway.